Oh, they're getting paid. We do when we do moral victories, like the Browns' moral victory record is 1-1. There were no moral victories to take away. There's maybe more moral victories for the fans because I don't want fans to walk around in a bad mood all the time or in despair all the time when things aren't going well. So there might be some gold in them there hills, and I think there are things that you can take away because you don't just get rid of players year to year to year or the entire cavalcade of players year to year to year. But you have a Dolphins team where I have a coach. I really don't know if he's going to make it here on October 19th.
That was an entertaining game, by the way, last night.
It was entertaining, but does that mean that there's a moral victory to a wide receiver that you have that I don't know if anybody's going to trade for him. Boy, I don't know if you heard that prime broadcast of that. They got into that. Oh, God.
But then what you're talking about,
they paid,
hold on, you're talking about Tyreek, right? Tyreek Hill?
Yes, of course.
You saw, though, playmaking, still there, still look fast.
Clearly, yes.
Still definitely look like if you're a contender and you feel like you've got the locker room that you could plop him in and take care of things, right? He still looks like he has a lot of talent. I know people were wondering that the first 2 weeks, but he looked excellent last night.
But I think that for somebody will probably trade for him, but I don't know what value you're going to get back because I have no idea. Like the NFL at any time could probably step in and go, well, we're going to take a look at this, and we're going to like now there's an exempt list or something like that. Like there's a lot of weirdness to all of that right now. So, but
like I could see Shanahan going, oh, I can get Tyreek Hill. Really? Interesting.
That's a very fair point. But you have Tua, who you've paid a lot of money to. You had Mr. Cool as the head coach, who, boy, you want to talk about president's agent, he looks terrible now. And they're 0-3, and it looks like this is going to be a situation where the Browns play that. I don't think Kevin Stefanski's going anywhere before the end of the year. But at the end of the year, I don't know if it's going to be a situation that you can go into 2026.
They'd have to be like 1-13.
Yes.
Then I could see it.
But I don't think that he's in any danger. And I don't if they go out and they even get blown out on Sunday against the Packers, I don't think that he's in any danger. I don't know if Mike McDaniel's going to be here on October 19th when they play the Dolphins. And I think that you obviously feel the same way. If there's anything, for a fan, where does moral victory stand? Because if we're talking about the Browns all along this entire offseason, right, going into 2026, how many times, as of right now, do we believe it's going to come out of our mouths? Well, you got Carson Schlesinger, he's really good. And you got Mason Graham, and he's pretty good. And you start to say these things because you're looking for something that's a positive. Well, that's a moral victory. That's a moral victory. So it is a moving category of what it is. But at the end of it, what bothers me so much and what's bothered me so much is that you and I were flummoxed in 2022 where we would get these opinions of, well, the process is fine. The way they're doing it is fine. They're just not winning. It's like, yeah, that's the whole point of the game. That's the whole point of the game is to find ways to win. You're not winning. Somebody has to answer for it. Now, somebody did. It changed, but you have to win. Somebody has to do this, and it has to eventually count up there on the scoreboard. So how long do moral victories go?
And in year 6. That's what we keep coming back to.
Yes.
It'd be one thing
if it was in year 1 and it was a totally new regime.
When they tore it down to the studs, you're willing to give more leeway. You don't have any expectations. You are monitoring the young players to see, all right, how long is this process going to take to go from, the basement to wherever we're trying to go? This one's a weird one because did you see the numbers came out? And I know people were trying to expose why this is such a flawed metric, but the Browns are like the oldest team in the NFL.
Yes.
Okay, and people are like, well, that doesn't count. They have Flacco, but it does count because every team's got a mixture of some young and some old and some guys that could be swaying. But the Browns have a lot of veterans.
Exactly.
They have a lot of veterans.
Especially in key positions, right? It'd be different if the kicker was 40 years
you're bad.
old.
Yet you're supposed to be bad. That almost never happens in the NFL. If you're going to be bad, you get rid of the veterans and you start from scratch. They're in a weird year. We labeled that. We knew that in the offseason. Whether or not they had Flacco, they could have had anybody else. And fine, take Flacco out of the equation. They still were going to be an old team.
I'm the king of moving goalposts, but you guys know damn well and certain that if you're going to be young, it's a little bit easier to not be as good. But if you're going to be old, you better be good. And they are the 5th oldest team in the NFL, and they ain't good. And they're in a not good situation.
It's 5th oldest? Okay.
Yes, I thought it was the 5th oldest the last time I saw it just yesterday. So maybe things have changed. I have no idea, to be honest with you. But I saw it yesterday. It was fifth oldest by the metric I saw. So if you're going to be one of the older teams in the NFL, and yes, I know that we're talking about 22 to 25-year-olds in a lot of cases. Like, yes, it's still relatively young. But if you're going to be an old team, you better be good. And they're bad. They're bad right now. And I can't take away when you have a franchise defensive end, a franchise cornerback. You do have a 40-year-old quarterback that I know that he's there as a bridge, so I take him aside. But I have an offensive line that right now their future is all up in the air. All up in the air. That means you might have to sign. I think that a lot of people would like to get younger on the offensive line. Zach Zinter's not ready. He was a healthy scratch. So you might have to sign Wyatt Teller to a contract just to have some stability on the offensive line when you go and get a guy in the draft for this coming year. And now, and I'll tell you this, there's more understanding than ever. Like I mentioned, I know you brought up Jaden Daniels, like there's going to be a little bit of a sophomore pushback. We mentioned C.J. Stroud. There's definitely been a little bit of a regression to the mean there because other guys have to play good around him. I think there's more understanding than there was 8, 7, 6 years ago even from getting new quarterbacks and immediately taking off. I think there's more understanding there. But damn, if you're going to be in year 6, and I look at the Dolphins, if you're going to be, how many years has Mike McDaniel been there? 4? If you're going to be in year 4 or 5, like it's time to go.
I do think there is a difference.
It's time to go.
This week.
It can't be dealt with.
I do think there's a difference this week. I mean, call it moral victory, call it whatever you want. There is a huge difference this week in just getting blown out and looking like you have no business being on the same football field by the time it gets into the fourth quarter as the Packers. And, hey, Judkins, Sampson, Fannin play really well.
That's great.
You keep it to within 7 to 10 points, and it's a ball game, in the fourth. I do think there's a major difference between that and just getting blown out.
I think you say that right now, and I think that means something for those players, but what's Kevin Stefanski's overall record?
Oh, yeah, I'm not. Again, you know how I feel about the losses piling up and the organization.
Exactly.
But I'm talking about fans would be able to leave the stadium saying, you know what, if we just had the right coach. Like that's what you'd be able to do.
But when you hear about the understanding
right quarterback
of things,
and the right coach.
When you hear about the understanding of things, I think it makes you want to pull out your hair because it's still year 6. And if I go, yeah, I got Fanning, yeah, I got Swessinger, yeah, I got so and so. Where were all these guys? Okay, why am I not saying guys from 3 years ago? Why am I not saying guys from 2 years ago or 4 years ago here when this regime has been in charge for 6 years? Like that's why I keep saying it may very well be too little, too late for Andrew Bear. Right now, I don't know how people are thinking while they're driving in. The YouTube chat is all whether or not they should trade Miles or if they even can trade Miles, which it is a untradeable contract, and I can't describe how many terms. I mean, it's innumerable. He is here. It is bolted to the wall. He is now a lifetime Cleveland Brown. The dead cap money, I think, is at $86 million if you really wanted to get into that. He has a no-trade clause, and that's just the beginning of all of it. So he's there, which made me start to think, I think a lot of people would still say the same thing Herm did, and I felt the same way Herm did. Like, hey, you knew what this was when you signed the contract. How dare you if you thought that, things are going to change dramatically. You know very well they're in no position to change things dramatically right now. They could have changed things dramatically. I hate to say it back in 2021, but boy, we have been over that this week now, haven't we? They can't do it now. There's not enough space, not enough time. So you got your extension, you signed your contract. Can I just ask you one question? Because I've kind of come to some fans' defense on this. There is a sentiment like, hey, you guys all said you were going to win 4 games this year. Why are you guys mad? Why are you even mad? And I think that you kind of brushed up against that earlier this week. And my answer to you, I think it was Tuesday, and my answer to you was, well, you have a point. If you felt that they were going to be a 4-win football team, maybe you shouldn't be so mad. Maybe you shouldn't be so downtrodden when you thought that it was going to be this way. But in the last 6 years, they've been a surprise to make the playoffs.
In the years they've made it.
Yeah. In the years they made it, they've been a surprise. You're right about that. There's been expectations that they haven't filled. But when they made the playoffs those 2 years, they were surprised. I don't think many people thought they were going to make the playoffs in 2020. Certainly not in 2023.
Well, remember, 2020 was the COVID year. Nobody in the stands, right, for most of the games all year. And then you were coming off an abysmal 2019. You got drubbed in the first week. So then it was like, what is this season going to be?
Yeah.
It's going to be terrible.
Exactly. So I think they have the right to, because you've had your emotions played with. We didn't think that they were going to make the postseason the years they did. So I think that there's a lot of fans who probably said, yeah, 3-win, 4-win team, in an attempt to do the Anthony Lima where they just tried to shield themselves from their own feelings. You don't want to get your hopes up so you can expect the worst and enjoy the very best if you get the very best. But I think that it became abundantly clear on Sunday that they're not going to approach that. They're not going to do that. And I think reality sank in for a lot of people that this could be a very long, tough season for them. And I think they're mad about it because it's not just that, it's the culmination of everything. You know, you and I have gone back and forth you went back and forth with the afternoon show yesterday. You and I have gone back and forth on what's happened, like on Monday night, and where that guy stands and where the other guy even stands with Nick Chubb. And I think they see that, and I think they're just, they're just so down. They're just so angry over what's happened in the past. This opportunity that you had to finally have consistently good football, and for a million different reasons that weren't even all the Browns, weren't even all everybody shared some blame for a million different reasons. It slipped through their fingers. And now I wish, to be honest with you guys, I got to have Drew Aller go out there and play well on next Saturday. I got to have him go out there, play well next Saturday, and play well on November 1st. And let me tell you why. Because at least it would center the conversation on a person. Because when we were terrible in the past, it was, can we just get this one guy? And he might make things all better. And now you have a class where nobody's excited about anybody. Well, and I think he might be just because he's local.
Abstract instead.
Exactly. And just because he's local, I'm not putting him on my list yet because of these reasons, because he is local. But just because he's local, I think that he's a guy that Browns fans could galvanize around and say, hey, let's go out and get this guy, and let's get behind this guy and see whether or not we can get this thing going in the right direction. And I think that that's flimsy as that comes out of my mouth. I think it's flimsy. But we're going into a year where I've heard good things and terrible things about every single one of these fellas that are getting ready to come out. So now you can't even sink your teeth into that. And the guys that you've seen in the past that you've used as examples, C.J. Stroud's struggling. Jaden Daniels has struggled a little bit. Caleb Williams is struggling. Look, there's a lot of struggle out there.
Well, okay, I guess the time to get mad for me was at the end of last year, and I thought it was probably the right time. I wasn't screaming about it, but I thought it was probably the right time to go in a different direction, right, with either leadership in either the head coach or GM. But I knew if you got rid of Stefanski after 3-14, then you'd have this awkward year of a new head coach with the prior regime. And then that would probably result in a divorce, and then you'd be doing this backwards. So I knew that probably weren't going to get rid of everybody. Now, this season, I had such low expectations coming into the year where I said 4 or 5 wins. That's what I thought, which was right in line with Vegas, right? That was the win total. But it's also weird to say 4 or 5 wins with a team that is right up against the salary cap and that has Myles Garrett on the team, and then veteran offensive linemen, and then Denzel Ward. So, and you still had David Njoku. So it was weird. It was weird. Then they get this rookie class, which I felt really good about, even though I didn't understand the strategy of some of what they did with the rookie class. I was like, man, I kind of like these rookies.
It's almost like they were just trying to find good players.
Yeah, and they did. I think they did. I think
just
they
anything
did
to find some decent players.
But now I'm looking and I'm like, what is this year going to be about when I don't think much of Dylan Gabriel? And then they went and compounded that by taking Shedeur Sanders, which made the training camp one of the most bizarre training camps you can imagine, where you had the 4th-string quarterback and 5th-round quarterback getting all the headlines day in and day out. And then, we're sitting there talking to Herm Edwards now, and we didn't even mention that guy. We didn't even mention the guy that we talked about the entire time, to the point where our boss was like, hey, what time did you mention Shedeur Sanders? I'm like, oh.
I think he was doing that to stick it to us when he asked that question.
We didn't?
I think he knew.
Like, we did. He was the talk of trade. That's what I'm saying. Like, I can't believe what a bizarre situation they're in. They're up against the cap, one of the oldest teams in football, and the headline guy was Shedeur Sanders, who is an afterthought right now. What a weird team. What a weird season. Yeah. Is that what I should be yelling about? Should I be screaming about that? Because I keep saying, like, you said, well, I can't see them firing Stefanski in the season.
I can't.
Daryl said he's not on the hot seat last week, and I'm like,
I talked to somebody.
Well, if they go 0-6, he's on the hot seat.
We're going
to be talking about firing him.
I talked to somebody we all know yesterday, and he will say it on the air eventually. And it's a name that I think people trust, even though they probably disagree with him. I'm just not going to say it yet because I don't know if he wants me to say. He's like, there's absolutely no way. He doesn't like. He thinks he's coming back in 26. That they're all coming back in 26.
Which I'm telling you,
which is a sobering pause for a lot of people there.
Can we just take bets? But you'd have to know what the season is. I'm telling you right now, guys. If they're 1-9, 2-12, they're all getting fired. I'd bet any amount of money they'd all be getting fired because we're going to be feeling very different today than we are feeling today.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't hope it happens, but it looks like this is inevitable.
That's just what happens. I know we've all said it's a feather in the cap of the Haslams that they've actually had some stability.
And I think
right that we've been able to finally lay claim to this is the organization, this is the coach. They're not dysfunctional. They don't fight every day. Say what you want about 3-14. They're not dysfunctional. Like they actually do. You actually have a GM and a coach working together, and they've done it for 6 years. That has never happened with Jimmy Haslam.
But losing is
but
dysfunctional.
But it doesn't matter because you're losing.
But now you're not functional with your fans. There's dysfunction with your fans. Because now they go from, all right, let's fire everybody right off. Szynski doesn't work. Get rid of him. Get rid of him. Get rid of him. And I think actually that year the fans didn't want Rob Szynski fired. I think that Joe Banner doesn't know his ass from a hole in the ground when it comes to actually putting together a football team, and he had way too much power about that. But I do think, though, that we went from firing everybody every other year to let's get some consistency. We need some consistency to now it's like, well, we're doing it almost at our own peril because you've made decisions that are not popular with the fans. It's come home to roost. We argued about that yesterday. I know that there were plenty of more people that were down with that decision than want to admit. They don't want to admit, but their opinion isn't public. Yours is. So they might have liked it at the time, but they hate it now because, hey, they have to answer for it and they're powerless. So the fans are going to be upset. So they're going to want somebody to answer for it. That's dysfunction. It's been 6 years. If you can't get the scoreboard to be on your side, then somebody's going to have to pay the fiddler for that eventually. And if you go into another year, you can have all the consistency and all the functionality you want, but I think it just turns into a different message as it's going, yeah, you guys can make those numbers do anything you really want them to do except for the scoreboard. And then it seems ridiculous going, well, how on earth has my favorite football team fallen into the hands of the people who don't answer for me as a fan? And so they have every single right. Miles signed his deal. Miles gets paid to play. He plays well. He's done exactly what I asked him to do. I got no problem with Miles whatsoever. But he doesn't have the right to complain about the entire thing of it. Yeah, it's embarrassing to go out there and have your ass handed to you. So I agree with him there. He can't complain about the enormity of the thing because he's getting $123 million more guaranteed. But I think every single fan out there, yeah, they could go, yeah, we're going to win 4 games, and they have every right to be seething pissed when they lose a game on a Sunday because then it just feels like you're further and further away from either somebody answering for it or getting better. And that's an issue because the trust is eroding week by week.